I'm here to introduce our guest today on the Brian Marshall podcast, Michael Sanders. And he's an interesting dude. He's been working in Nashville. He's been a producer on a lot of different projects. He is doing something now with bourbon and bourbon sponsorship. So anything to do with bourbon really gets me excited. I'm sitting here with a bottle of Heaven's Door right here from Louisville that my neighbors left at my door. So bourbon's interesting to me. And also, you did a really big project a few years back that you said may be the biggest project you ever do in your life. So maybe you could just say hi to our audience and tell us a little bit about each one of those things. And my preference is to start with this biggest project you may ever do in your life.
Hey, what's up, guys? We doing good?
Well, welcome.
That was quite the
welcome.
intro.
You know, I Ryan had pointed out that we have not spent time to introduce the guest on the front end of the show. So we're doing this in a little bit different format so that people can get a sense of who and why should they listen to this.
Right.
I appreciate the lead in, especially about talking about his video that you did.
Yeah.
Start there because it's really a cool thing.
Yeah, so that was 2021, just coming out of COVID.
Seems like forever ago, but it wasn't.
It wasn't that long ago. But my kids were both going to Clarksville Elementary School.
Clarksville, Indiana, I may point out.
Yeah.
Right across from Louisville. We always
Right
like
over
to say.
there. I live in Jeffersonville, but they go there. But their music teacher, Emmy Bodner, I knew her and she called me and just had some ideas about doing something because the kids couldn't have a performance that people could attend, right? So she was trying to figure out ideas of something they could do. So she was like, maybe a virtual choir, maybe, So, in my head, I was kind of like, the virtual choir thing was kind of like because we had to do it because it was in COVID,
Yes.
But I was like, let's just do it for real. We can bring cameras in. Let's just do something, So I just came in and started filming it and producing it, and I started recording the kids separately. They were going to do the solo parts, and it took me forever. It took a month and a half or so. I was working a lot more on it than I was on my job at the time, and it was a nightmare. I mean, it just took. I had to record. I built the choir vocals with 10 kids at a time, and made stacks, and there was a key change, so we had to record 2 big choruses, and then I had to film kids out in the gym singing, and then I had to record. It was just.
Did you do it over a bed of music, or did you have an orchestra, or how did that?
So I recorded all the music that you hear in that. So
You played.
I played the drums and the piano and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and what the fun fact about that is, a day before we were going to drop the video, we had built the whole thing on a karaoke track. Because I just really wasn't thinking about it. It started as a small kind of idea, but it just got cooler and cooler as we went. And I was like, man, could be something. So I realized.
Let me ask, when you say karaoke track, I mean, so the words could be
like we just pulled it off of Spotify or something.
Okay,
It was just that.
Did we tell everybody what we're talking about? Like that?
No, not yet. We're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting
We're
there.
going to.
I mean, if they
Hold
want to
on.
look it up on YouTube or Google or wherever.
Yeah,
We're going to do it.
Oh, all right.
drum roll.
Ready?
Yeah. We're talking about the Clarksville Elementary version of We Are the World.
We are the world.
It's on
We
YouTube
are the
and
world.
TikTok and everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the day before we put it out, I sat there and I was like, this whole thing's built on a karaoke track, and when we drop it, that karaoke track is copyrighted and it's going to get pulled everywhere. So I was like, I need to re-record the music so it's like brand new music, right? So the day before, I just sat there and just had to play all the track again and replace everything, right? So we did that, put it up.
Overnight, just replace all the music.
Yeah, it was a trip because I didn't know the song. I mean, it's not that crazy of a song, but I had to learn the piano parts. I had to learn, you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. So I did all that, and they even had a rap part in it and everything. It was a trip.
Wow.
So we did that. We put it out, and it just kind of started slowly going nuts, just started building on Facebook at first, then started going nuts on YouTube. And then, we started getting calls from people, and Katie Couric put it on her Instagram, and it just started going bonkers.
But didn't you not make You made the evening news. I mean, like CBS or one of those. Did you not?
I think there was a few things. I mean, I remember it was like one of the national news, was getting a hold of us, and
I thought it was
we never had
NBC,
to
but-
go to a national news thing, but it was getting reported on.
Yeah.
And then we had some news organizations kind of license the story, so that it went to all the local news,
Okay.
everywhere, and so just a bunch of cool stuff was happening. It's a couple people did articles and whatever, but a lot of people saw it, and my info was on it, so I started getting emails from people. And
I saw it, and I never thought I'd be sitting in studio with you who produced it.
yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, that's the fun thing about stuff like this, is like you never know, and this goes for anything anybody does. Like, you never know what you're doing while you're doing it. Like, every time, like if you're so the person who's writing some book that's going to go crazy, they're sitting there feeling like a failure until it goes out, right, or whatever. It's like you never know what's happening when you're in the middle of creating something. So that's kind of a cool little hopeful thing, that now when I'm creating things, I kind of go, who knows what's going to happen. So, but always, I mean, I feel like I'm always working on something as if, like, well, I have to make myself happy.
Yeah.
Right.
The fun is in
Yeah.
the creativity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then if it goes viral, if it goes big,
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like, will it make money or will it?
Well, you
be
don't
sad?
really have control over that a lot of times. You don't really know what's going to happen there. So the best thing I figure with anything I make, if I can't move myself, then the world definitely won't be moved. Sometimes I could make something that I think is awesome and the world still isn't moved. So that happens a ton. But yeah, so it was a really cool experience, and it kind of put me on a different trajectory, because a lot of people started reaching out, and I was able to get jobs and video gigs I couldn't have gotten without the clout of that. People, I got a really big video working for a nonprofit in Colorado, and produced a thing for them, and that led into a lot of things. Me traveling around making videos for people. So it's still, I mean, I was very green. Like, I was, I don't know. I guess we could go back now and talk about
Where did it start?
the beginnings. Yeah. I mean, I just grew up playing music in church, basically.
Yep.
And when I was little, I started playing piano when I was 5, started playing drums when I was 7, played in church when I was 11, ended up started singing, playing guitar, playing bass, fronting a band, started recording my bands. I started recording other people's bands when I was 16, 17.
What church did you get started in doing all this?
Gosh.
It doesn't have to be the name, maybe, or just a
it's
denomination.
It was all over the place. I mean, Baptist churches, Christian churches,
Baptist,
Assembly of God. I played drums in a crazy Assembly of God church when I was.
Oh yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah. So.
That was the church I was raised in.
Yeah, I mean, you get muscles playing drums in a church like that. You know what I mean? I remember this one church is just like, because the services would just keep going on, and you're the people, everybody's leaving. And I was just like, God, I want to go to Mr. Gaddy's, but it's 2 p.m. and we're still having a revival over here, So, but it was, I mean, that really, the church musician people I was around really affected me and made me into a good musician. It really kind of raised my bar of excellence, I guess, in the early stages. But I just got into recording bands. I was in a band, and I guess when I was around 21, I had a kind of a weird vocal cord problem. I was kind of had partial vocal cord paralysis, and I was singing in a band, doing that a bunch then, and that just kind of stopped me singing for a while. And so while we were trying to figure that out, it was a neck problem. I kind of had a chiropractic type muscle problem where muscles were pushing on my larynx weird and wasn't letting it vibrate right. So that was the real problem. And so once I got my neck figured out, then my voice kind of got back to normal. So it wasn't really a permanent thing. But
I was going to ask, what kind of music did you like? What was your go-to?
I was kind of a just alternative kind of. We liked Coldplay, Muse, Radiohead, Copeland. We're kind of an emo, kind of on the early end of the emo thing. It's kind of an emo kid too. But yeah, just I love pop.
Yeah.
So But yeah, I just got into production. I started producing bands and under the name Jet Lag Recordings. It was my studio for a long time. So about 10 years of that or something. I had a studio. I did a lot of stuff. Mark Maxwell was a huge part of sending me work, and he was somebody that was a big kind of champion of me doing that, and he kicked
Since
my
you
butt.
mentioned his name, Mark was our last guest on the show.
Mark's our
Oh,
friend.
and
Yeah.
he sat
You don't
here?
know him, look him up.
He sat
Oh,
right
my
there,
Lord.
the last person. And
No, I love Mark.
and he's done so well with the if you're in a band. So if
Yeah.
anybody would, that's the guy. If
He's
you're in
the
a
guy.
band,
Yep. We're working on doing some stuff with him right now too. I'm really excited about, so we'll see. I'm trying to me and Mark are good buddies, and we hang out and stuff, but I'm trying to get him to make a course and stuff. So we're trying to collaborate on some stuff with the if you're in a band kind of stuff, because he's got such a cool thing going on, and he's who knows what'll happen. But I'm kind of in the now. I was in music, and I did that for a long time, but now I'm kind of in the personal branding video space. So so I feel like me and him could have a cool.
I showed him one day. I don't remember why I was in the music store for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "You need to call this guy. He's in Jeffersonville.
Mm.
Tell him what you're up to." Meaning you.
Yeah.
And
We had coffee that day. Yeah.
yeah, and then I said, "Let's just go have coffee," and we did. And it was, we were all over the place, but it was very, very interesting to me. And that was back when the snow was on the ground, so it's taken a while. But this guy is on the road constantly, but I just wanted to get him here to talk about. Go to the. Was it Eric Church? You were.
Yeah, so we can talk about the bourbon thing if you want to talk about that.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's-
just to be clear, so I don't really do anything with bourbon. I started.
I'm just gonna hold this bottle.
He's
of
just
bourbon
gonna
while
hold
you're
this.
talking about it.
It's
This-
warm.
This is
supposed to
no,
hold it.
yeah, it is warm in
It's
the sense
warming
that-
him up from through the glass.
It was. Oh, that's a good idea. I just have to tell you, this little. When I came over here, I came out my door, and this was sitting outside my door
Mhm.
because I'm in Unit A, and about 5 steps away is Unit C, that's rented by Bob Dylan's bourbon company, Heaven's Door.
Oh yeah.
And they just left me a message again. They do this a lot. Thanks for being a good neighbor, Heaven's Door team, or whoever happens to be staying there. And I just can't wait till one day it's signed by Bob Dylan.
Ooh.
And so maybe we should bust it open. I don't know if we've got glasses, but anyway, so
He likes to say Bob Dylan's my neighbor.
I do
Yeah.
like to say that. It's
I
he's
haven't-
been there.
I haven't
but-
tried the Heaven's Door. I'll have to check that out.
All right. Well,
But,
Not to interrupt your story.
yeah.
So back
No,
to,
no. So just the bourbon connection or the bourbon stuff I've been around. So I guess around September I started. I met Fred Minnick, and he's an author, bourbon critic, kind of worldwide bourbon authority kind of dude. He's a YouTuber, interviews celebrities all the time. Really cool guy. And a guy that's connected to him called me and booked me to go film him at Bourbon and Beyond last year. So he was a part of founding that festival, I think, initially. But anyways, he's become a client and a really awesome friend. I love Fred, and I've had a big privilege to be able to work with him some over this past year. So he's always it's called the Fred Minnick Show, and I've been a part of filming a couple episodes of that. He also filmed some of it. He filmed like a season of it in Nashville right after we met. So I've been kind of doing some trips with him, and he does some stuff with other people, but I've kind of been a small part of his team. But yeah, so he's just really, I've had some amazing experiences with him. And I don't know a lot about bourbon, or, I'm kind of like thrust into this
You
bourbon
will.
underworld.
by the time we finish that bottle, you'll be an expert.
Oh yeah. But I've had some really cool experiences, like, going to the Make Your Marks guy's house for a big fundraiser thing with all the bourbon families and stuff like that Fred's a part of, and just, going to different things and videoing him. It's been super cool. He's just a really cool dude, and he has a new book that's coming out. I don't know, maybe 6 months or 9 months or something. It's going to be really awesome.
I
But
can't wait.
he's got a really awesome story. But yeah, you'll have to, if you don't know about him, you got to check him out. He's really great.
I know.
You
him
know, you
by
talked
name.
about Maker's Mark. I went down there for a tour one day. I was I was with the city and tourism. That was a number of cities, but Louisville being one. And they invited us down for kind of a private behind the scenes thing. That whole corporation is run by 75 people.
Really?
Worldwide Maker's Mark, everybody knows that, the cap with the wax running down.
Yeah.
But if you're anytime they're bottling, everybody, secretaries, everybody out to the plant, here we go. Now today we're on the bottling operation. And they make that work with, at that time, it's been a number of years ago, but they made that whole corporation work, which I was amazed to learn with 75 people.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've been going over there over the years, and they have my favorite part of the tour, besides dipping, you can dip your hand in the mash and taste the foam on the top, and it really gives you a sense of where the bourbon comes from. Okay, so as it's aging, because it's like high percentage of alcohol, so
yeah,
you're not going to spoil it or something. But on the way out there to these giant wood vats, they use these amazing vats, and you pass the courthouse, and it looks like a little outhouse.
right.
And it is, and it's right on this little stream. And it turns out it became known as the courthouse because local people would just ride their buggies up, bring their quart jars that were empty, and they'd just fill up. And then they'd leave the money for however many quarts they filled up.
So the quart,
The
not
quart
the quart,
jar.
the quart house. Huh?
Courthouse.
It's a cool story. And
It is.
they don't always tell it on all the tours, and I don't know why, but
That's a good one. That's good. Yeah.
I like it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Bourbon.
So bourbon onto let's go back to the music thing, because that's so intriguing to people. Everybody wants to hear about music production because that was part of your life too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was around, I'd been running kind of my studio, and I was producing bands kind of around here regionally, and I'd been, finding people to mentor me in Nashville, really learning how to edit really well, edit drums, edit vocals. There's a lot of editing and souping up people's music to make it sound incredible, right? So I just really became a student of the craft of making records, So I got to where I was just really good at vocal editing, and I made friends enough to where one of my friends was vocal editing for a really cool Grammy-winning producer kid named, he was 28 then, but his name is Seth Mosley. He's had like 5 Grammys then, and he's just killing it. Him and another guy, X O'Connor, they kind of have a team together. But my buddy, one guy I met down there, Dave Hagen, he did a lot of vocal editing for them. He also kind of runs Dark Horse Institute down there, the recording school. But he just kind of did some editing on the side when he had time. But he was out of town one time, and Seth wanted some stuff edited, and he said, "Hey, why don't you call this Michael guy in Indiana?" And so they sent me some files, and I edited them, and they really liked them. And then he just kind of said, "Hey, we need a guy. Like, would you just want to do all of our stuff?" And so pretty much my Dropbox just filled up with songs, because this guy, he gets up and writes with somebody every day and makes an incredible demo, and he edits all his demos. So it's pretty much like I had just instantly had just more work than I knew what to do with. So I quit recording everybody and just started editing for him, which was cool, but it was also kind of lonely, I went from working with bands all the time, just sitting in a dark room, editing vocals. But I really learned a lot, just even getting sessions from those guys, just even seeing how it was an education. I mean, it was just incredible. So
being around that,
I got kicked in the butt on how to make really great records, and I got even better. But in the middle of all this, my marriage is like falling apart.
I was wondering about that with all the traveling. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't, for the most part, I was doing my editing here. I was working for them. I would go hang out with them some, or we go to an award show, or we go on a trip. But for the most part, I was still in my studio here in Jeffersonville. So, but yeah, it was really cool. We got to work on some bigger records, like this rock band Skillet. We did one of their albums, and bunch of like Christian people. We did a country album by a band on Atlantic called High Valley. They kind of had a top 20 around that time. Just very cool. Great experience. But anyways, like I said, it was like once I kind of got divorced, it was just like the music industry was falling apart kind of as far as being a middle class guy in the music industry, the whole time I was trying to get into it. So there just wasn't a lot of money to go around with recording budgets and stuff. And so
I don't know how they do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the only money they make are live shows somewhere where you can go see
and
the
I mean,
artist, because nobody buys a record anymore. So I don't know how.
Yeah, it just the amount of money that
Spotify,
people
maybe.
are willing to pay for editing and stuff, it just, and the amount of time, and like, you're working on a big record, you want it to be really good, right?
Yeah.
So it's like really high standards, really kind of mid-range pay that wasn't very exciting to me. And I was like, I just don't want this to be my life anymore. So I just quit music.
But you were working for some major labels in Nashville,
Yeah.
like Atlantic and
Yeah.
whom else?
Warner.
Okay.
I mean, it was my guy, the producer I was working for was doing it, but I remember getting a check from Warner Brothers one time, for
That's
something.
That's fun. Yeah.
That's
I
fun.
was like,
I want one of those.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it took forever and it wasn't that much money, but it did have their logo on it.
Yeah.
So
it's
pretty cool.
it is cool.
But I mean, it was a cool experience. I mean, I was very privileged to end up, in the rooms I was with some people that I was, right?
Yeah.
Something too that I think is a cool lesson for people is that a lot of times the biggest people ever are the nicest people. And it would like, you could probably, the other day I was doing something with Fred and I got to, we did an event, his Super Bowl event, Fred Manic Live, and I got to meet Dierks Bentley and hang out with him a little bit and some other people. But it's like you hang out with somebody like Dierks Bentley, nicest guy on the planet.
Yeah.
But then you go to Louisville, it's some little tiny local show and everybody's total douchebags. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kind of like, that's usually how it goes.
It's like you, Michael, though. You're like so comfortable to be around, and so humble and just simple. I mean, you really exude that kind of kindness of greatness as well.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I got to ask Lisa off camera here. So when I was in Washington, I told you I was hanging out with the quarterback from the Cowboys. Help me with his name. No. I thought you could tell me his name. Okay. Well, it'll come to me. Who's a sports fan?
I'm terrible at sports.
Me too.
Oh, I think on camera I'm going to tell you I'm a big football guy, but really I'm not.
So if you went back to, Lisa's going to look it up for us. So
I was just hanging out with Warren Moon at the Kentucky Derby, though, if that counts for anything.
Well, that's sure. Yeah.
Ooh.
And I said,
I was going to talk about hanging out when he said hanging out with people and the bigger they. So
Yeah.
she's going to come up with it, I hope.
By the way,
Major quarterbacks
she's-
with the Chicago.
while Lisa's
I don't
working
mean
on
Chicago. I keep saying Chicago. The Cowboys.
that, Cowboys.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, I don't mean to kill the whole show here.
You're like,
Talk
it was
about
somebody famous.
It was
somebody famous. So here's what happened. I got invited to the Bush inauguration. It was black tie and black cowboy. You had to wear
Okay.
black cowboy boots. All right.
right.
So I'm there, and we're near the hors d'oeuvres, and this gentleman who was standing there by himself,
A famous gentleman.
famous gentleman,
probably a bit. He was a quarterback.
quarterback,
Didn't have to
with-
be
Quarterback.
with the Cowboys.
Dallas
But I
Cowboys.
didn't know.
Okay.
And we're chatting, and I'm looking around the room, and everybody is looking at us standing at the hors d'oeuvre table with a cocktail. And we kept talking, and he said, "What do you do?" And at the time, I was a tourism director for Indianapolis,
Mm.
and I explained that. And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "You don't know who I am." I said, "No, I haven't a clue." And he got a big kick out of it because
Yeah.
everybody in the room, hundreds of people there, wanted to talk to this guy at the inauguration.
Right.
He's been talking to me for
Hanging out with you.
hanging out with me because
Yeah.
I was so comfortable. 'Cause I had no idea. And
Right.
so for about what
You
is it?
still don't know who he is.
Still don't know who
It's
he
a
is.
mystery. This is what's going
Darn.
to keep
For-
people watching. They're
30
going to be like,
years, I got
who
a
is that
Christmas card.
quarterback for the
Yeah, I got a Christmas card signed by all the
Roger Staubach.
Roger Staubach.
Staubach.
Thank you,
Roger Staubach.
man. That feels better.
Yeah.
I will be 70 years old in September.
Hey, you're doing better than me. I'm
Wow.
having many a senior moment lately.
But anyway, he was just the classiest guy, and he said, "Give me your address," and he sent me a Christmas card from the Cowboys every year, signed by all the cheerleaders
Really?
for many, many, many years. And
Nice.
I think, like 30 years. I always got to open it up. The cheerleaders and Roger Staubach. But just echo your your point that
Yeah.
the bigger they are, the easier they are to deal with.
Yeah,
many times.
I would say usually that's the.
yeah,
right.
usually.
There's
Every
a
once
few
in a
I
while,
can
there's
think of
some
that-
outliers, but
Yeah, they're outliers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
agree.
yeah, well, and the way I like to think about it, usually people, you don't get to be really huge when you're a douchebag.
Yeah.
A lot of times you got to be nice to work you know what I mean? If you're just a horrible person, then you probably wouldn't be famous a lot of times. I mean, it could be a different story, but
And what do you think about the more a person gains notoriety, the more they realize I am just a normal dude, and
right.
I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And, there is a degree of making your own luck in the world. That's true. But like, I just find a lot of gratitude among people that you would expect wouldn't waste the time on you, like,
yeah.
and yet they do.
You mentioned hanging out with Madonna.
Yeah, she was one that really surprised me. I had a pretty low bias on
But
the
Tell him the story about how that happened. You were in Rome. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I was living in a monastery in Rome. I was the only American, and so when they asked me, "Hey, would you be interested in taking care of Madonna when she's in town for her concert in Rome?" and I was like, I had a vow of
Seems like a
obedience.
question you wouldn't have got asked, but that's awesome.
No, exactly. I know. I had a vow of obedience though to the guy that was asking. This was my abbot of our monastery, and
Okay.
so I'm like, okay, I'll give it my best shot, because that's what you do with a vow of obedience. You try to conform your will to a
Yeah.
greater will. Okay,
Very cool.
Good lesson in life.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And she showed up. It was in the middle of lunch, and I got this.
Were you like driving her around, or you were just kind of?
She actually was going to come to the monastery. It's famous old monastery in the center of Rome. It's one of the 7 basilicas of Rome, and there's
Gotcha.
a bunch of monks there that have been there for centuries, and we were the custodians or guardians of the relics of Jesus' Passion. So the Vatican, the Christian Church, the Catholic
Yeah.
Church owns the remaining pieces of the cross of Jesus, plus the Titulus Crucis, which is that sign on Jesus' cross, and some nails and things like that.
Wow.
And so it's all highly protected. And the ones in charge of those are the monks in the monastery where I was a monk.
Wow.
And so, it's
That's
fun
insane.
to show. And Madonna at the time, I think she was coming up on stage on a cross, and got a lot of criticism, a lot of hate for that. It's like, oh, what are you doing desecrating this symbol? And and so that was the pretext. And the reality is, turns out she was trying to embody suffering in the world in a modern day context of her being on a cross, appearing on a stage, and then she would sing about it.
Right.
And, I admire that. And I don't want to go too far into how low my level of bias was towards, her. And I just was extremely impressed with her high level of spirituality, her depth as a person, and her humility to just, hang out with me. But, she wanted to see these relics. She wanted to see where they were kept. She wanted her kids to know about them. And so she brought Rocco and Lourdes, and I ran into her in the middle of a monastic garden. The limos brought her in there and dropped her off, and then they said she's out there somewhere. And so I'm a monk in my monk robes, wandering around in the garden looking for Madonna.
Yeah.
And I found her. I dipped my head under the orange blossoms and the orange leaves, and I saw this pair of female legs, and I'm like, that's got to be her, because this is a monastery and there are no women in here.
Yeah.
Good looking legs, okay. But I wandered up, and it was so quiet. She was in the middle of the garden, and it's just it's like the Colosseum. It's huge.
Yeah.
And except the monks use it for a garden. And so I'm walking up the path in my monastic silence, gracefully gliding down this little path, and she has her back to me. And so I'm
What do you
standing
say? Hey-
right behind
hey,
her.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't want to scare the crap out of Madonna. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I just cleared my throat, and I still scared her. She turned around,
Oh my gosh.
and we spent the day together and with her kids and stuff. And she was just an outstanding person. So I've met.
What year was this?
This was way back. Date myself, but I believe it was back in the early, like 2008. I think it was 2008, 2009.
Well,
And
I got shoes that old, but
yeah, I have a pair of shoes from the Pope that I went
from
to
the
visit.
Pope
Yeah, from that time. Yeah, it was Pope
and his violin.
Benedict the 16th.
Tell him that quick story
Oh,
while
hey.
we're talking about music.
This is totally unrelated. Just kidding, but I actually have a picture. I mean, I don't want to talk about this, but for some reason, I bought my worst picture today of me with the Pope, and he's holding his little staff, which like I was supposed to help him out on that day.
Put that in the reel.
But it's a pair of shoes that are his, that basically he gave me because my shoes had a hole in the bottom of them, and he's like, "What size are you?" And this was actually his valet. He said, "What size of foot are you?" And I said, "About a 42 centimeters, 43." And he's like, "Oh, that's perfect." And he walks into the other room, comes back with a pair of the Pope's red shoes, and says, "You can go down on Borgo Pio right outside the Vatican gate here, and the Scarpaio, the shoemaker, he will dye those black for you, and then you can wear them to school as a seminarian." And I said,
I don't want to.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. If I have a pair of the Pope's shoes, I am not gonna dye them black, and I'm just gonna keep them, and I'll wear through my soles on my feet if I have to.
Right.
And his valet was so kind. He said, "Well, in charity," he said, "like, it's my obligation to make sure that you have shoes, but it's your choice to do whatever you want with those." And I thought that was
There
really
you go.
nice. I still have them.
Wow.
They were at the Ali Museum for an exhibition called In Their Shoes, where they would take shoes of famous people around the world and migrants, and flip-flops of somebody that walked across all of Central America to get into the United States or something like that, and then tell their story and then show their shoes. And I thought that's an awesome theme, and they wanted to auction off those shoes, and I was like, man, those were a gift, and I feel bad auctioning off or selling a gift.
Oh no.
And so I still have them. Maybe I should have.
Interesting. Well,
Do you feel different when you're wearing them?
Well, I don't, which is probably good, because one of Brian's themes is be authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And I see that in you. Actually, I see that in every guest that we've had, but definitely in you as well. And it's weird coming from a guy that's been in like advertising, I think, where you're like, no, you got to authentically be yourself. But
I just
that's
said there's
the
a quote that
best
says,
sales
"Be honest
is when
with
you are
yourself."
honest with who you are. And I think coming back to the humility of people who could just lord it over everyone else, they just often don't.
There was a quote that said, "Be honest with yourself. That's really who you sleep with every night."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yourself, and you're right when your eyes are closed. Are you being, people know whether they're trying to put airs on or whether they're being authentic. And so many people, they've got to, try to be something they're not. And
Well, it's one of those things where I think that people know if you're full of crap.
yeah,
So
That's
it's like
the other thing. Yeah.
just let the pressure off and just be you, because they're gonna know you're a liar if you're trying to not be you.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think the cool thing is people would rather see you broken than see you like a facade of something put together.
I think you should write a song about that.
But I think
people would rather
many
see you
people,
broken.
Yeah.
Ooh.
if you're killing it, they're not happy for you. It seems.
No,
to
yeah.
bother them.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Well, if they're that kind of person or not.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's the
like,
crabs in a bucket thing.
Mhm. Wait.
Have you heard about this?
No.
It's like there's a thing with crabs where if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, when one crab tries to get out, all the other crabs grab it and won't let it get out.
There you go.
That's kind of how life is, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, right? If
Sometimes.
you want to stay in the bucket, you don't want to see people get out of it.
I used to sell Dungeness crab in the Pacific Northwest and walk around in vats of crabs.
Wow.
I did not
Maybe
know
I'm
that.
lying about this, but
No, I'm
it's
going
kind
to
of
say that's awesome. No, there was no way to get out. So I
it
always
was a
felt
pretty
bad
big
'cause-
bucket. Sounds like.
Yeah, they were like 20 times the size of his room.